Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Paradise Hills. So, I had a kind of hesitation about going into this movie because, like, when I kept seeing, like, trailers, imagery, whatever, like, it just comes off as a very, I'll be honest, it comes off as a very girly film. So I was just kind of like, okay, what is this movie? Because really I was like, well, it seems like there's something telling me that I might be interested in this film for whatever reason. So I went into this film and all of a sudden I just started watching it and I was like, oh my god, this is basically level 16. Like, I've seen this movie, level 16, and now I'm seeing it again here on Netflix. And I was like, and this is Paradise Hills is level 16. I'm like, so I'm wondering, I was kind of curious if this wrote level 16 wrote this movie, or if somebody came and found that idea and took it and redid it and did it as this. Because if you go into level 16 and you go into this movie, feels like one and the same. If you liked Paradise Hills, go and watch level 16, evidently. It's pretty much the same thing. So, uh, so yeah, somebody obviously, like, this one came out in 2019, that one was 2018, somebody something. So, because it feels the same thing. You could say that the end goal isn't the exact same, but it's heavily familiar territory. So, going into this movie, what is this thing about? So, it seems that we have a girl named Uma who is to be destitute and forced to go to this magically delicious island that she is just to wake up on and just be like, what am I doing here? She tries off, and of course she can't. And so she is to be told that she needs to be a much more prim and proper kind of woman, or basically give her suitor or her soon to be husband kind of the woman that he is to want, instead of this girl just being, I guess, herself. Weirdly enough. We also have certain girls here are to, I guess, to have to conform to whoever, whether it's their parents or their soon-to-be spouse or whichever. It seems that eventually we have girls like Chloe who are to have been supposedly told that she needs to, of course, be this skin and bones, and, or we have a girl like you basically be told that she can't go off and like do her own kind of music because her kind of music is like blah, 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 kind of death metal or whatever. It also seems like we have Amar Amarna Imerna Imerna a singing songwriter person who is to eventually want to like perform her own kind of music, do what she wants to do, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh no, you can't do that." And so they just shipped her off here to force her into conforming to what these people want. And so when we when we get this scenario here where all these people are to be gone through the ringer of things, I'm like, so what's going to happen here? Is it going to be brainwashing? Is it going to be like, hey, you have to perform this role for your family, whoever, because they pay a lot for that? But it seems that at the very end, we end up finding out that there is something completely different altogether. And that's what makes this movie, I guess, the most interesting thing. So, I went into this movie and I would say that this film is rather slow, in all honesty. It's a movie where I'm just kind of like, can I skip some stuff? Can I skip some things? Could we get to the point already, movie? Because, like, I was just like, man, come on. Like, this is such a slow film. And, like, that was my biggest complaint where I was just like, come on, give me something here. Like, get me, like, consistently interested in this movie. Like, when looking at Level 16 and then looking at this film, like, there is some intriguing parts about Level 16 where when I go into this movie, there is no intriguing, interesting parts. They just, like, plop a girl down on this weird horse and show her some images that I'm like, okay, why should I care about what is going on here? Why should I invest in any of these characters? And why should I feel sad of where they eventually end up towards the end of this movie? And I don't really have an answer. Like, I really don't have an answer of why I should have invested in any number of these people or hoped that eventually they were to get out of this whole thing, escape from this island that, yeah. So I would say that this movie is a solid just thing to see, but kind of get ready for there not to be like exciting moments. You're gonna have to like really wait and stretch and just kind of like, okay, like I really just want to know what's actually going on in this film because I just want to know. It seems that also I had went like I will always be honest. I also went on to another app that I've been consistently using, and Paradise Hills was one of those movies where it was viewed and viewed a lot. Like, it was on a huge high rung of people interested in watching this movie, and after watching this, I do not understand why. Maybe it was the cast list, because we have the girl who ends up playing Uma in this movie. I think she was in, like, Scream Queen. I think the girl that ends up playing the Duchess is to be, of course, from, like, Ultraviolet and Resident Evil. And maybe just, like, the cast list. Like, we have, like, Yu is, of course, from, like, Shang-Chi. So, I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all these women just together eventually just got people interested in this film. I don't know. Maybe people were kind of thinking that, I don't know what people were thinking about this movie, but evidently it was hugely popular for whatever reason on some other app that I watched. So that was kind of my fascination when it was to be easily delivered to me on Netflix, where I'm like, okay, so I have to watch this movie now because, like, it's an easy thing for me to just be like, hey, yeah, Netflix, reason. But I had this on another app for I don't know how long. So let's go into that double five time territory. I'm going to probably hopefully just kind of wrap this up fairly quickly for this review, just because, yeah, it was just not a movie that just overall just got me so jazzed about it. I was like, man, I just so badly just wanted to skip, like there was parts where I was like, man, can I just skip? Could I shave some minutes off here? There's so many parts in this movie where I'm like, there's nothing going on. And that happens a lot in this film where I'm like, there's nothing going on here. There's nothing going, there's nothing happening. I still don't understand what's going on. I still don't understand what's going on in this film until the very ditch end of it all, to just be like, oh, I can't see it until we get into spoilers. But so immediately when I get to the spoilers, I will tell people the hook of why I guess this takes forever to get this girl the way she is and the way she has to be. And so let's go into it. Let's go into that double five time territory because it is this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we spoil this movie. So the hook of this movie is that the reason why it takes so long is because they have to prep another girl to take every single one of these girls' places. And I'm like, what? So, and then plus all these girls have to learn every single bit of who this girl is so they can basically steal this person's identity and become them. It's kind of like the one movie that I saw on Netflix called Cam, where you have like a girl who is to be really heavily popular with, let's just say it, taking some clothes off or just being seductive, and then all of a sudden we just have this robot variation of this girl who ends up stealing this girl's like livelihood, which is her like she ends up stealing her job. She ends up stealing her account and then takes control of it. And then now the real Cam girl's like, what the fuck? And so this girl has to figure out a way to shut this other digital version of her down. And so she ends up figuring that out. And everybody ends up finding out that this other version of this girl is a fake and this is the real version. And they're like, oh my God, like, this is a fake thing. And like, I liked that movie. I enjoyed it because it also had, like, you know, topless girls. Yeah. Anyway, I'm like, but hey, freaking, like, I love the female form. Hence why I watched a movie that a lot of the thing in the movie is the women. Because beautiful women are all kind of women. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, pushing on. Why did I have to relate Cam Girl to this movie? I don't know, but I'm talking about it. I apologize for female audience members that are just like, he just mentioned that movie? What a guy. Anyways, pushing on. So, the very beginning of the film, we have a girl named Uma who is to be going through seemingly this after party of her wedding, and she is singing this song. And I'm like, okay, this is really, I guess, a good song, like good enough. So all of a sudden, we have her husband that is to go off, and he looks like Prince Charming, but he isn't Prince Charming. There's no charm about this guy. So this guy goes off into his room, and so some woman comes a calling for this guy's bride to just say, like, hey, like, get to stepping, like, your husband went off to his bed, so you better get there, and you better just give him the business, you know what I'm saying? Just full on give him that sweet business, because, like, husband. So the husband is to go off into the bedroom to eventually find his woman there. And because basically I did it in the more awful way than like how that woman actually said it, but it's kind of like the same thing. Like, I'm saying it in the more like she tried to say it in the polite way, I guess. Like, oh, you must not keep your husband waiting. It's like, I said it in the more like street way where it's like, yo, baby, he wants some of that. Go up there. Come on. I said it in the street way. They said it in the proper way. So, which I did not like either or way. It's just like, I'm sorry. Like, how about he just go and freaking wait? Like, wait for this woman. Whatever. So, this guy's will otherwise go and land upon the bed with this woman and just be like, wow, it seems that like you are a completely different woman than I could remember you ever being. How is this possible? So all of a sudden we cue 2 months earlier, where Uma is to bizarrely in, and I don't understand, like, what time period is this? Is this in some distant future? Is it in some past? Why does everyone look like freaking uh like you can't tell what time period this is? Is it medieval times? Is it like what time period is this movie set in? Because we have this like futuristic looking car, but then like everybody's wearing like the weirdest freaking like Leave It to Beaver kind of clothes or setup or whatever. And like I guess they end up calling the one head mistress or whatever. She's the Duchess, the girl that we have from Resident Evil in the middle here. Not in the pink hair, the girl in the top here. So, and she's the Duchess. So I'm like, is this some like distant future thing where like eventually we have like, and here's the goofy thing also. Uh, the Duchess is to some point or another towards the end of this movie be this like poison ivy like character, which I'm like, okay, that just makes so much sense, right? No, doesn't. So, but we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So Uma is to wake up in this fantasy island where everywhere she's to go, she's to realize that she can't quite figure out how to escape from this place because of this being on an island. So all of a sudden, Uma in her robe and her PJs that are just like, again, you can't really tell what the time period of this is because this girl's just rocking like a t-shirt and she's just wearing some PJ like pants and she's wearing this robe and I think she's wearing some Converse. I can't tell. Man, freaking, if those were really legitimately Converse, I bet it sucked running from anywhere where she was running because man, those shoes have no freaking soul. Like you're running around and you're just like, man, like because I've had times when I've had like kind of like really thin soles, like Airwalks or whatever that are kind of like the laughing version of Converse. I'm like, man, these soles freaking suck. Anyways, pushing on. So Uma all of a sudden is to bump into this one girl who's lighting a cigarette, and it's to be the Amarnia. If I'm saying that anywhere close, because I didn't really pay attention to that girl's name or much of anyone's name, because that's how I roll. That's how I dance in reviews. So Uma bumps into this girl. I'm going to call her Uma. AMA, Uma. I'm going to shorten her name, even if it was short enough. So, Uma. Oh crap! There's Ama, and I'm going to have to say the whole name. Amarnia. So, I don't even think I'm pronouncing that right. So Amarnia goes and, like as if her name is Narnia, Amarnia is to eventually go and say, hey, like, Uma, come with me. Like, come with me, I'll help you. And so Amarnia just goes and turns this girl in to the nice guy authorities. And Uma's like, how could you have done that? And so they end up like chucking her into this room. And so eventually they tell this girl, like, hey, like, you're going to be stuck here for a while, but hey, how about you go and meet with the other girls that have been sent here? And eventually we'll just, from time to time, have you come into this room and talk to this Duchess about a part of your life or like something about your mother or something about your friend, or something about the life of which that you have led up until this point. And so we have Chloe, who is to be this girl who was told, I guess, by her parents, or like I'm assuming by her parents, that she evidently is to have been a person that is to lose weight during this whole time, during this whole retreat. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but Chloe looks slamming. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, freaking, like, go freaking Chloe. Like, she looks good enough. She looks good enough. Like, she looks hot enough. Come on. Like, let's be honest here. Let's be real. Like, anybody would be glad to get some of that Chloe, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not joking. Anyways, Chloe, hit me with the digits, woman. I'm having fun. So now we also have to go to Chang-Chi Girl. And so it seems that Chang-Chi Girl, who is you, not me, you, I'm having fun. She evidently is a person that is to not really mingle with the group all that well. It seems that she's to kind of be the one that, like, they really have to kind of, like, marinate a while with this girl. Like, really just be like, hey, girl, come on. Like, be part of the group. Like, yeah, you don't have to change like they want you to do. But, like, hey, like, they really have to, like, butter this girl up. And when eventually they go and they do their weird gymnastic yoga class things, and eventually Uma's like, hey, like, how about you go and you partner up with me? And you is just like, I don't want to partner up with you. Like, I don't want to do any of this stuff. And so, like, Uma just talks her into it, and she's like, okay, fine. And so they end up doing their weird exercise together where they're pushing back on one another's back. I hope somebody freaking cracks something, where it's like, like, while they did that, to where it's just like, god dang, man, like, I didn't know I had all those popping going on. But anyways, so more, like, we end up having them every single night going and getting this absurd amount of food, this basically like a food like barely the size of my fist. And, like, that's not even like a hamburger. Like, you could probably fit all the food inside of my fist, squeeze it, and wouldn't have any problem with it spilling out, because it seemed like that was some, like, microscopic food that they were giving these women. Because supposedly they were saying, well, this is to have a benefit to your diet. So this is the right amount of food that you should be given, because evidently they were to only be having a certain amount of calories per day. And weirdly enough, they were all given this milk, this, like, white milk. I would have been like, hey man, where's the chocolate milk? I don't want no white milk, give me the chocolate milk. Maybe I want a little bit of that chocolate, you know what I'm saying? Why does everyone get the white milk? I want the chocolate milk. Yeah. Could you give me a little yoo-hoo? What about, give me some of that orange drink, you know what I'm saying? Give me some orange juice. I don't want milk. Give me orange juice. Can I get some of that? Can I get a Pepsi? Could I get some? What future are we in that all we have is milk? So, funny enough, we have you, who is to mention that she's lactose intolerant, and we have the waiter guy who's like, I'm sorry, you, but we all here know that you are not lactose intolerant, so you can drink this milk. What if there was one person who was lactose? Coincidentally, I'm seeing everybody drinking this milk. I'm not seeing one person have, like, orange juice or some other thing. It seems like everybody can weirdly drink milk here, so no one is lactose intolerant. Evidently, they probably killed off all of those people early who are lactose. Anyways, pushing on. So they go and they drink this milk, and so All of a sudden, these girls sleep really well for whatever reason, because somebody's been doing a little candy in the meals. You know what I'm saying? We end up finding out that these girls have been drugged in the milk, and Amarnia was trying to figure out a way to escape with Uma, and it seems that Uma is to mention to the Duchess that she is to have this crush on some guy instead of the guy that she is supposed to get married. And all of a sudden, we end up having this guy magically appear upon this island to talk to Uma and say like, "Oh, like just wait, my love. Like we'll escape together. It's only a matter of days." So we find out that eventually, I think his name is Marcus, is playing Uma. That supposedly he was going to get some money at the end of all this, and so Marcus thought that Uma was to uh, go off and want to be in love with this other guy and not him. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's a really severely flimsy excuse. Like, this girl was kissing all up on that guy and whatever, and it feels like that girl was going to run off with him. But he didn't see it that way. I don't know. I don't get this. So eventually, Uma is to tie herself onto Marnia, and I know I'm probably I know that name is probably ill pronounced. I have a feeling or distinct like thing that like Amarnia is just a different pronunciation of that name. Pronunciation is probably not even a word either, but you know what I'm saying. You get what I'm putting down. So Amarnia was to go and tell Uma that there was a ship that was to come in because Amarnia is to have someone that works here that is a fan of hers because Amarnia is to be this big singer that eventually like Chloe or you is to mention how popular that this girl is to Uma because Uma had no clue. And so Uma eventually goes with Marnia, and so Marnia is to say that Marnia didn't want people to discover the cave that Amarnia goes into to light a cigarette every night. And that was the reason why Amarnia turned in Uma at the beginning of this movie, because it's like, hey, I didn't want anybody discovering the cave that I was in that I was lighting up a cigarette. But then also, Marnia had that cave for a reason, because when that ship was to come in, there was to be this little smaller boat that was going to help Amarnia get the heck out of there in convenient timing. And so Amarnia is divulging this to Uma to just say like, "Hey man, like we're gonna run off together. We're gonna get the heck out of here. Don't tell anybody." And so immediately Uma tells Marcus about like, "Hey, like I'm gonna tell you this whole thing." And then all of a sudden, that very night, when people were going on and sipping their milk, but then going to the bathroom to spit it out, we end up finding out that Amarnia was to eventually leave this place and go off to her happy ending, which even Amarnia was like, "See what now? Like I'm leaving? Like I don't think I drastically changed at all." And no one else is thinking that either. So all of a sudden, like Uma's just like, "Oh my god, like this is awful." that this girl is leaving. So we really have Uma now just kind of distraught that this girl leaves. And so eventually this girl ends up getting like broken down and to having to be a girl that ends up trying to escape, but it doesn't work out. So she ends up being locked into this cell of theirs again, forced to go and drink this milk that is going to knock her out. And once she comes to, she ends up seeing this video of Amarnia, and like she's living her happy life as this musician. And oh, we also have these scenes where these people are to be bizarrely put on this horse ride and lifted up into the sky, where all of a sudden they are to see these videos over and over and over and over. And Uma ends up seeing this video of her boyfriend to be, or husband to be, where he's just kind of mentioning over and over again about like it kind of feels like an advertisement for him like being on some like dating show where he's just like, I like to take long walks on the beach kind of thing, and I'm. And when me and my mother are just together, it's just like, like it feels like a huge advertisement. I'm gonna have to reset here for a second. So we see like Uma's like boyfriend to be, and Uma's just like, why am I watching this video? I've seen this video already. And it just keeps looping over and over and over again. And so it seems like Uma isn't the only one that ended up being like a thing that happened to, where they ended up just like Chloe was to supposedly just see people walking around eating lettuce or eating like, God, what was it? It was either lettuce or celery. I don't know which. Like, I don't know what the heck that any of that meant. But I guess it was just to program these people's brain, or to supposedly have brainwashed them. But we end up realizing that like that wasn't a brainwash scenario. That was just a, hey, here's a giant waste of time video that you're watching while we're trying to like freaking figure out your brain and like dissect you and whatever. So eventually the Duchess is to have Uma come in and say, well, Uma, like it seems like you're going to be going pretty soon. And Uma's like, wait a minute, what? Like, how long was I asleep for? And the Duchess is like, oh, well, you were asleep for 2 weeks. So it's like they have these people that are to be put asleep to guarantee that they are to be here for X amount of days through this whole process. And we have this spot where Uma is to grab the Duchess and smash her into this mirror because she scared her. And so the Duchess ends up getting this like scrape onto her, like her head. And so, and we also find out that every time that these girls are to be put to sleep, it seems that they end up going into this like surgical room where like doctors do things to these women, which I thought was weird. So eventually now Uma, after this whole scenario, is now like, Uma's really just like, we're gonna get the out of here. We're gonna get out of here. Like, we're gonna escape. Like, I don't know what this is, but the Amarnia that I saw, like, it wasn't my Amarnia. There's something different about her. So Uma tells both Chloe and you, hey, we're gonna get the heck out of here. Like, no one's gonna like force us to be someone else. Like, we're just gonna be us. Like, no one's gonna control us and whatever. So, like, you make the choice now to come with me and don't drink that milk and get the heck out of here. So, all the girls go into the bathroom and spit this milk out. And so they end up going to bed but not fall asleep. So you would have thought that they would have just gassed all these people. Like, I think, like, in level 16, they just, like, well, I guess they just gave them pills because they were dumb. They didn't know what it was. Like, you would have thought they would just gas these people and that would have just solved everything, right? Like, you can't escape gas. Yeah. It's a joke. So, it seems that you, coincidentally, needed some last minute canoodling with the doctors at night. So all of a sudden you is to be brought into this medical room, and so both Chloe and Uma are following them. And so eventually Uma and Chloe save you from any kind of surgery. But we end up finding out that you is like suffering some kind of something, some kind of illness, some kind of whatever. And so they're kind of like carrying her out. And so they kind of run the gauntlet to try to like get like make their way through this place to eventually try and escape. And they end up finding out some room that all of a sudden has every little microscopic information about these people who are them. And so, like, wait a minute. So, like, it seems like they have been, like, keeping a database about us. Why? So, all of a sudden, we have these girls going further into trying to escape. And they end up finding out this other room with all of these cloned versions of themselves. Like, you was to have a cloned version of herself being made by some other girl who was poor and was, I guess, some lower class girl. And so that's how they do it. They plastic surgery these girls to death to look like these other girls, so that way they can just replace them with the perfect girl that is to be just so happy to have gotten a better life for herself, that she is just going to perform and be this other girl for the rest of her life. So I'm like, oh my god. So, and you have Chloe, who is the another Chloe, who is to be like a thinner, kind of different version of Chloe. She has that accent too. So all of a sudden there's to be Uma, who is to have this unique necklace of her father. And like supposedly this is to be a unique necklace because only her father could perfect this kind of necklace, where all the ones that supposedly came after that were just garbage ones. And we also had Amarna that also gave Uma some weird like humming bee pendant thing that we end up finding out is some kind of like tracker thing that is to eventually help figure out Uma like where to go, because I guess it's some weird compass to try to get back to the mainland, when of course they were going to go and go onto this boat and get the heck out of there. So we end up finding there's clones of all the women that are there. So eventually at the end of this, all of Uma, Chloe, and you all end up in this room with the Duchess, that all of a sudden we end up finding out is this plant-like woman that is to bizarrely feed on all these women and I guess kill them all off. Because weirdly she like, is to be this poison ivy like character that is all of a sudden to grow vines to grab onto these women and like suffocate them or like just kind of smush them to death with her vines, which I just thought was the weirdest freaking thing. I didn't understand that whatsoever. How we just have this Duchess was all of a sudden just poison ivy all of a sudden, and she is to just be like, that was the goofiest thing about this. I didn't get that. But what ends up happening is these girls go into this room, and we sadly have Chloe die by this Duchess who plants her to death. And then all of a sudden, it seems that Uma was going to suffer the same fate because Yu was already dead. She died, and her clone just took over because this is Star Wars, the Clone Wars. I just had to say some word that says clone. This is Jean-Claude Van Damme's Replicant. I don't know, whatever clone movies. Anyway, it's like whatever. Is there any other clone movies? Pushing on. So, Emma is to pass around her necklace before she's to go off to fight off Poison Ivy. And she is to mention to these girls, hey, whoever you're eventually going to be, whoever is the one who's going to be me, you're going to have this necklace for the rest of your life. And to see my father and stuff like that. And so eventually this starts to get passed and passed around, and eventually it seems that this one girl ends up with the necklace at the end of this. So all of a sudden Uma is to almost die from this Duchess character that is strangling her with these vines. But Uma has this scalpel, of course, that she saved from her doctor visit, let's just say, of when Uma was going to be on this slab, and then they try to like pull her off and try to kill the doctors and try to be like, hey, get away. But they ended up like calling out the sirens, and so people try to escape. Anyways, pushing on. So as viciously as I try to try to wrap this one up, because it's already 42 minutes. And I think the original movie is like an hour and 25, I think. I don't know. Who knows? It was a long stretch of a movie. So we end up finding out that Uma's clone ends up showing up, and now there's this real confusion of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Sixth Day, where Arnold ends up having a cloned Arnold. Yeah, that's another clone movie. Michael Rooker was also in that one. Yeah. Reflecting on clone movies. Just thinking about it. So now all of a sudden, the Duchess doesn't know who is the cloned Uma and who is the Uma that they're trying to get rid of. And so the Duchess is like, oh, I can't figure out who it is. And like, I would have just killed them both just to save some time, but I guess we put a lot of work in that one woman. So eventually the Duchess can't figure it out. So eventually Uma ends up killing this Duchess by stabbing her and like killing off like her ability to do plant things. And so then Uma ends up getting free. But here's the kicker. None of the other people come back to life. We also have Uma, who ended up seeing Amarnia in here. And she was like, oh no, so she did die. Oh, she suffered the fate of any of the other... She suffered the same fate as Chloe. Remember that? Chloe died in the same spot. Similar. So Uma and cloned Uma are going off to eventually just be like, you know what, F this. We're going to go and we're going to go on our boat and we're going to get the heck out of here. Before they end up leaving, they end up seeing Marcus. And so Uma is to kind of have a scalpel to this guy's throat. And he used to mention like, yes, like I wasn't going to take the pay that they were going to give me. But I heard that that you love this other guy and not me. And so that's why I did what I did. And so Uma's like, well, I'm not trusting you to get on this boat with me. No. You have lost your trust, sir. You have lost your trust. So Uma goes off with her cloned version of herself to eventually row their boat all the way back to the guy that they are to supposedly be married to. And so now we are back at that point when this Prince Charming is to eventually lay next to his woman in this bed. And so what ends up happening is we have two variations of Uma, and we can tell the difference. One, of course, has this kind of like brownish, like honey kind of colored hair, and of course, one has the pink colored hair. So we can tell the difference between the two because wedding and not wedding girl. So the girl that's in the bed has pink hair, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this must be the clone version because I saw the other girl that was in the wedding or as a bride, and like that doesn't look like the same color, like obviously. So the bride is kind of waiting outside the room for the pink-haired supposed bride to kill her would-be husband, and then so the bride is going after hearing some noise, and so once the pink-haired girl makes her escape and gets out of that castle, fortress, whatever, we have cloned Uma who's looking at other Umas like, hey, like we did it. Like, we're done. Like, this is good. Great. So Uma runs off in her green cloak to never, I guess, be seen again. And so cloned Uma is to scream, ah! Ah! And so all of a sudden, her mother comes rushing in, finding out that bizarrely her own husband was weirdly stabbed in the back by who? I don't know. I guess they never come to that conclusion because the movie just wraps up and ends with just like, well, I guess nobody makes the conclusion that his wife killed him. I don't know. I guess because of that song, like said that like, oh man, she really loved him, and so yeah, like that's just kind of how the movie ends. It's a very weird movie. It's a very strange movie. It's a movie that like was. Let me pause here for a second. My apologies. Like all of a sudden, like I was just sitting here, and I was all of a sudden just like, hey, like, and then all of a sudden, like my back just like went, buh, and I was like, oh my god, like that freaking hurts like a motherfucker. Because I've had times where I'm just sitting somewhere, I'm just like, hey, this feels great, and all of a sudden I'm just like my back freaking just like doesn't feel the best. Like, it all of a sudden, like, I'm just adjusting in my seat, and all of a sudden, my back just freaking, like, does something that I doesn't want it to do, and makes me freaking, heavily just in pain at some point. But, yeah. Oh, well. So, yeah, so this review is to be over. Like, I don't know what that was. It was just, every once in a while, I just get back pain for whatever reason. Like, oh well, like it's life. But it doesn't happen very often, so oh well. So yeah, with that said, hopefully I covered everything. I tried to just do this the quickest way possible, just to kind of get it wrapped up. So if there's anything that I forgot, I apologize. If there isn't stuff that I went into heavy detail, is probably just because I wanted to just kind of quickly get this done. Plus, it's really late when I'm putting this out. So, it's really severely hard to get 3 uploads. Especially when I'm just, like, having a huge conundrum of what the heck to put out every day. Especially when, like, it's always easy to just be like, oh, okay, well, I could put this out. But then you're having a huge amount of problems just trying to figure the next thing out, because it's always just like, well, hopefully this is going to go well, or hopefully it'll just be a thing that I just put out every single day. So anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.